Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at our layers panel a little bit more and some basic functions in our toolbar. Alright, so if you have open, make sure you have your layers panel open, okay? And, as I was showing you before, feel free to get comfortable closing any windows that you might not want open, or just pulling them and dragging them apart, or whatever is easier for you to work in. Okay, so why are the layers panel, or why is the layers panel so important? This gives us all the control that we would need to make something in Photoshop and adjust those things as we work on them in Photoshop. Okay? So we never want to work straight on the background. And what do I mean by that? So right here, if I were to grab the paintbrush, and I'm going to right click and just make this a little smaller, and just draw on the background. Okay? Here I can see now the background has that little mark on it that I just drew. And actually, I'm going to make my thumbnails bigger. Panel options. Yeah, make them giant so you can see. Alright. So we'll get into a little bit more what these things mean. But yeah, there it is on the background. So now if I wanted to, say, move this in some way, move it over, I can't really. If I wanted to erase it, here's the eraser. It's kind of a, unique idea. I want to erase some of that. Alright. It can erase it, but I have very little control over, like, if there was something else on there, or, whatever, I might have 3 different colors on there. Oops. Photoshop fail. So now if I just want to erase the red, I'm smudging. It's making a big, I have a weird eraser selected. Sorry. Let me get a basic eraser. Something really bizarre is happening. It's like it's smudging it. What is going on? I don't know. I was doing something weird in my Photoshop. Anyways, I made a huge mess, and I have no control over it. Okay? So, let me go back a little bit. Everything opened. Alright, so all I wanted was my history panel. Okay, so a history panel allows us to, like, go back in time and, go back to, like, where it's not a huge mess. Okay, so let's look at the layers again. Okay, so in the layers process right now, or in the panel, I want to add a new layer. So let's try this together. So I'm going to go to the plus. This creates a new layer. Alright, and now it's like black. It's like the checkerboard. Okay? So if I turn this little eye off, I see the checkerboard. Alright, and that just means it's empty. The background has like a white, color to it. It's also locked, okay, which means you can't, like, move it. It'll let you paint on it, though. Alright, so I have one layer, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to double click on that, and call it red. Now, another way I could make a new layer, if I didn't want to use this, I could go to this little 3-bar hamburger thing, and go new layer. Alright, and then I can name it, like, right here. Call this blue. Alright, and then if I also, there's another way I could make a new layer. I could go up to layer, I could go new. There we go. I'll call this yellow. So this will be where we're going to put colors. All right, so I'm going to click on the red layer. And I'll talk more about these other things as we go. Grab my paintbrush. Any old paintbrush will do. And I will paint. Paint this cool little thing. All right. Now I'm going to click on the blue. Now, we're going to try some other things with our brush. So I'm going to go down to this front color here. Foreground color, background color. All right. Yours might be black and white. If I want to reset them to black and white, I can click on the little tiny version. Boop. Now they're both black and white. If I want to switch what's in the foreground, I can hit this little arrow. Okay, switches them. So I'm going to click on the foreground color. Your paintbrush always paints whatever's in the foreground, and I said blue. All right, and now I'm going to paint. And let's do yellow. Go to my foreground. Here's my color picker. I'm looking for yellow. That looks good. Hit OK. And now let's look at the brush like one more second. Say I want to switch my brush. Right click. Now I do a lot of stuff with the brush tool. Okay, so I have a lot of brushes. Okay, I'll show you later how to get more brushes. You probably have the general brushes, dry media, you might have wet. I think you probably have these 4. I forget. So I'm just going to grab like a cool brush. Yeah, it's cool, man. Alright, and then I'm going to paint with my yellow. That's like basically the brush I had before. Okay, so I just did like a little, goofy painting. Okay, no judgment. So now let's look at the layers panel. Okay, what can it do? Let's kind of explore this for a second. Say I want the red on the top. So Photoshop reads from the top down in the layers. So whatever's up here is going to be in the foreground. Whatever's down here will be the background. And whatever's here is your middle ground. Okay, so if I want the red on top, I drag it up top. Okay, if I want the yellow behind the blue, I drag it there. So try just moving them around. Also, just for right now, with red, say I want to play with like its transparency. I can lower the transparency just by moving the opacity down. Now the fill will kind of do the same thing, meaning like it's seemingly the same function, but it's not, and we'll get into that later. But we just want to use the opacity for now. Okay? The other thing we can do, now this is going to add one more tool for us. So far we have the paintbrush, and that's it, and the layers panel. Let's grab the move tool, this little guy up here. Alright, so now say I want to nudge the red over. Okay, beep. Say I want to move the blue over. Beep. Yellow. Okay. Now right now you can see like, oh, it's like whatever I hover over, it knows that's what I want. Okay? That's because up here, auto select is checked. Alright? So if I uncheck that, now say I want to move the red. It's not. It's going to stay on the blue because that layer is selected. Now you're going to think like, well, why would you ever want to uncheck? There are instances where you need auto select off. So now if I want to move the red, I have to click on the layer and then move it. Alright, but that's dumb. Let's go for auto select. Also, okay, last thing, there's this little button, show transform controls. All right, so some people like that on all the time. Now what's this going to do? What's the big story here? So now if I hover over whatever's selected, meaning like whatever layer I'm clicked on, it's going to show this bounding box. And if I go to like a corner, okay, I'm just hovering over the corner a little bit, I left click and then move it. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, but now that I've done something with it, I have to commit. And what do I mean? I have to go up here and say, don't do it, or do it. You know, hit the check mark, or I can just hit enter. All right, I'm going to try that again. Rotate. Also, hey, why not while we're here? I can make it smaller. You can just pull a corner and make it smaller. Okay, kind of pull anywhere. It used to be you had to like pull just from a corner to keep it proportional, but now you can kind of grab any little widget and it keeps it proportional, meaning it doesn't squish it. If I want to squish it at this point, I have to hold down shift and then squish it like I want. See how that's getting all yucky? Alright, whatever though. I just let go of the shift. And now hit enter. Okay? So in terms of like what did we just learn in terms of the basics, we actually just learned a lot about layer order, a little bit about the paintbrush, a little bit about the move tool, and that's it. Transparency. Okay? We'll kind of keep going and messing around with this as we work on this project.